skinny on the Bakken-Dakota-Access-LLC pipeline protest, which is being held by the Standing Rock Sioux. So, first of all, Flint, Michigan. It's a majority black city with a 40% poverty rate, but they had a big debacle. They have all those shitty pipes that have all that lead in them. So they need new pipes in Flint, Michigan. So why aren't we putting in new pipes for water for the people of Flint, Michigan, instead of helping the oil industry make more record profits? It's almost like America believes in capitalism over people. Both Flint, Michigan and Standing Rock Reservation are fighting over clean drinking water. On July 15th, 2016, the Ocheti-Sakowin tribal youth embarked on a 2,000-mile journey by foot from North Dakota all the way to Washington, D.C. to present a petition of 157,000 signatures to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers declaring their opposition to the construction of Kelsey, a billionaire ×4 Warren's Energy Transfer Partners Bakken-Dakota-Access-LLC pipeline, and wanting the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to stop them from constructing that light sweet crude Bakken oil pipeline through the Missouri River, the mother source. 37 individuals, mostly teenagers of the Ocheti-Sakowin tribal youth, such as 25-year-old Bobby Jean Threelegs and 13-year-old Anna Lee Rain Yellowhammer, literally ran 2,000 miles to get the 157,000 signature position to the Army Corps of Engineers in Washington, D.C. The other names were Tariq and Alice Brown Otter, Tatanka Lone Eagle, Adam Kills Alive, Emily Little Dog, Trey Skunk, and Joseph White Eyes. The Ocheti-Sakowin means the 7 council fires, or the council of the 7 fires, the 7 council fires. Originally, the Sioux Native Americans started out with the 7 council fires, and so there'd be 7 different tribes. They'd all have their council fires, and then that's how they organized themselves, and that's what the Ocheti-Sakowin is. And so it was the Sioux is what the exonym is, what we call them, but they call themselves the Ocheti-Sakowin, and really we should call them what they call themselves. So the Ocheti-Sakowin. Those teenagers, I'll say Sioux because, you know, that's what middle America understands, but I don't know. I think eventually I'd like to just say the Ocheti-Sakowin and you know who the hell I'm talking about. But the Sioux teenagers, they ran 30 to 70 miles every day to complete their 2,000-mile journey. And included among those 157,000 signatures was Leonardo DiCaprio. So even old Leo, he wants to help out the Standing Rock Reservation. The Standing Rock Sioux pushing the aggressive legal strategy are based out of Fort Yates, North Dakota. The Yanktonai Dakota live in the North Dakota part of the Standing Rock Reservation, and the Hunkpapa Lakota live in the South Dakota part of the Standing Rock Reservation. Sitting Bull of Custer's Last Stand fame was a Hunkpapa Lakota. There's 3 divisions of the Sioux if you divide them among the language barrier. The Lakota, the Nakota, and the Dakota. So Dakota, Lakota, Nakota. All are Sioux. But the Standing Rock, Sioux County, North Carolina is the Dakota. That's the Yanktonai Dakota. And then on the bottom part of the Standing Rock Reservation in South Dakota is mostly Hunkpapa Lakota. And it's mostly, there's white people and black and Hispanic people that live on the reservation too. The Standing Rock Sioux are being represented by Earth Justice, and they're seeking an injunction to stop the pipeline's construction until their case can be heard. Earth Justice filed a lawsuit in federal court in Washington, D.C. on their behalf. The U.S. District Judge, James Boasberg, has issued a partial work stoppage on Tuesday, yesterday, but only for construction between the State Highway 1806 and 20 miles east of Lake Oahe. But the work west of the highway, State Highway 1806, will carry on. So James Boasberg stopped the construction between the State Highway 1806 and 20 miles east of Lake Oahe because the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers lacks jurisdiction on private land. But the stoppage, the injunction, didn't apply to the land west of State Highway 1806. The injunction granted by James Boasberg is different than the tribe's overall bigger goal that challenges federal regulators' decision to grant permits to the operators of the four-state Bakken pipeline. James Boasberg is going to issue a full opinion on that lawsuit by the end of this week, Friday, September 9th, 2 days from now, maybe one day after you finally listen to this. So David Archambault, David Archambault II, he's the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux, so he's the mayor, he's the man, wrote, the monarch, he wrote a press release immediately after James Boasberg, his denial of the restraining order for part of the construction. The denial of the restraining order for the Bakken-Dakota-Access-LLC pipeline to stop their construction west of Lake Oahe. He says that it puts his people's sacred place at further risk of ruin and desecration. So he was not happy with the decision because he says that the construction west of Lake Oahe is also a place where his ancestors have been buried. Last year, President Barack Hussein Obama stopped the construction of the Keystone Pipeline due to environmental reasons. An environmental impact statement has not yet been conducted or released yet. In April 2016, 3 federal agencies, the EPA, the U.S. Department of Interior, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, said that an environmental impact statement needed to be conducted. But so far, that environmental impact statement has not yet been conducted. There's over 2,500 people and counting right now at the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation protest site. So over 2,500 people, and they represent over 120 tribes, 120 different tribes. This includes the Meskwaki and all the 7 Sioux council fires. So again, the Ocheti Sakowin. So all of the Ocheti Sakowin, all of the 7 of the Sioux Council Fire Nations were there. And so that's historic, and that was remarkable. They were so excited that all of them were meeting together, and that's the first time that all the nations of the Sioux, all the 7 nations of the Ocheti Sakowin have actually come together since the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, when George Armstrong Custer was defeated at Custer's Last Stand. Custer's Last Stand was when 700 men of the U.S. 7th Cavalry, who had Pawnee and Crow scouts, were decisively defeated by the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho. The Arapaho. So the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and the Arapaho crushed Custer. And they were being led by Crazy Horse and Chief Gall, and they were inspired by the visions of Sitting Bull. So at the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation protest sites, you have the 7 Sioux Council Fire Nations, the Meskwaki Native Americans, and even the Pawnee and the Crow Native Americans, who had acted for scouts for Custer in Custer's Last Stand, have come to show their support and solidarity with the Sioux, when the Pawnee and the Crow have traditionally been enemies of the Sioux. So they have been able to bury the hatchet, and now they're able to work together in solidarity. The Standing Rock protest of the Bakken-Dakota-Access-LLC pipeline is history in the making. At the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, you're seeing the largest gathering of Native Americans ever in the history of the United States. And the corporate media has completely ignored it. Just like they've completely ignored Jill Stein and Gary Johnson. Perhaps because she tagged that blade of the bulldozer, maybe they'll actually pay attention to Jill Stein. 3 weeks ago, North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple, so old Jack Dalrymple, the governor of North Dakota, Jack Rat Dalrymple Foul Pimple, he signed an emergency declaration. So Jack Rat Dalrymple Foul Pimple nearly called in the North Dakota National Guard. We've seen this play out before. We know what happens considering the history of the United States, the massive genocide, which some people, Howard Zinn said 10 million people were killed, and some people put the estimate up to 100 million Native Americans were genocided. The standoff between the National Guard of North Dakota and the Standing Rock Sioux could have dire consequences for the Native American protesters. The Standing Rock protesters are living on makeshift camps on Standing Rock Reservation's border on the Cannonball River, where the confluence of the Missouri River and Cannonball River meet, which is where the Bakken pipeline is supposed to cross. The makeshift camps are located on the spot where the Bakken pipeline is supposed to cross, so that way there's a human shield to stop the Bakken, aka Dakota Access Pipeline, from going through. So it's like a person who tied themselves up to a tree. You're going to cut the tree, you're going to kill the person. Now, if you're Israel, you'll just go ahead and bulldoze the shit out of Rachel Corrie and not even think twice about it. It's just a fucking human being. Who gives a shit, right? We're building all these pipes for all these oil companies. Meanwhile, Flint, Michigan's got all them lead on them pipes. And so if we care more about capital over people, is that a big shocker that Caterpillar Corporation would run over Rachel Corrie because she was standing in front of a bulldozer when they wanted to bulldoze the houses of the Palestinians, of which both Hillary and Donald Trump has pledged their blind allegiance to Israel to continue on their fucking crimes forever and ever. Jill Stein, however, has not. So they have a human shield to set up to stop the Bakken-Dakota Access Pipeline from going through. And the Cannonball River forms the northern border of Sioux County, North Dakota. And the entire county of Sioux County, North Dakota is part of the top of the reservation of the Standing Rock Reservation. And the Standing Rock Reservation spans two states. The smaller part is in North Dakota, and then the bottom part, the bigger chunk, is in South Dakota. And so you have the Standing Rock Reservation is a Hunkpapa Lakota and a Yanktonai Dakota Indian land reservation in both North and South Dakota. And like I said, the larger portion is in South Dakota. The total size of the Standing Rock Reservation is 2.3 million acres. So it's a huge swath of land. Sioux County's total population is 4,153 people. So this is the smaller portion on top of the reservation. So they have 4,153 people in the Yanktonai Dakota population. Density there in 2010 is 3.8 inhabitants per square mile. So that's a lot of land for not very many people. This is the crap land that, you know, the Americans didn't want it. The white Americans, you know, pushed them out there with the shit lands. So I don't know what that land looks like or what's going on with that land, but there is a lot of land there per person. 47% of Sioux County, North Dakota population live in poverty. So even though they have land, nearly half of the people that live in the North Dakota portion in Sioux County, the Yanktonai Dakota population, nearly 50% of the Yanktonai Dakota are living in squalor. 84% of those in Sioux County, this is the demographics, 84% are Native Americans, but you got 13% who are white, mostly of German descent, and there's a few peppering of black, Asian, and Hispanic folks there too. So it's not just Native Americans, 13% white, and, you know, some black, Asian, and Hispanic folks also. So the Cannonball River pours into the Missouri River. The Cannonball River is the northern border of the Sioux County, northern part of the Standing Rock Reservation of Sioux County, North Dakota. And then the Cannonball River pours into the Missouri River. So the Cannonball River forms the top, and then the Missouri River forms the eastern border. And it connects into the Missouri River, the mother source, and Lake Oahe. So Lake Oahe is, actually it was a dam built in South Dakota, and it backed all these waters up. And that's at the near of the town of Cannonball. So Cannonball would be at the very top corner of the Standing Rock Reservation. And the population of Cannonball is 875 people, and Cannonball Town is located completely inside the Standing Rock Reservation. The Bakken Pipeline, aka the Dakota Access Pipeline, is a proposed 1,134-mile pipeline. 1,134. The Black Snake. And the Black Snake aims to transport crude oil from the oil fields in the Bakken Shale region in the northwestern part of North Dakota. and from the Three Forks hydrofracking site starting in Stanley, North Dakota. And then it carries it downwards diagonally, heading southeast through South Dakota, Iowa, and then to a hub in Patoka, Illinois. So it's going to affect 4 states at least. The construction is going to affect North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and in Illinois to Patoka. From Patoka, Illinois, it could connect with a pipeline to the Gulf Coast for storage or for refinement and export, or reach East Coast markets by rail. Energy Transfer Partners owns a natural gas pipeline from Patoka south to storage terminals it owns through Sunoco Logistics Partners and terminals by Houston-based Phillips 66 in Nederland, Texas, which is retrofitted to crude oil. The many oil companies in the Bakken Formation in northwestern North Dakota are using hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling technology. So earthquakes for Oklahoma, earthquakes for North Dakota, earthquakes for everybody. And would that be a big shocker if we're having all this fracking and there's all these earthquakes, that perhaps the earthquake, the shifting of the earth, could snap some of these underground pipes? It's not that far-fetched. It doesn't take that much of an imagination to think that something like that could happen, especially since it's happened frequently. At least, 2 major oil spills or explosions happen every year. The Dakota Access Pipeline is being constructed by the Dallas-based Energy Transfer Partners Company, the ETP, which has Kelsey Warren as the CEO. Energy Transfer Partners is a Fortune 500 natural gas and propane company. Energy Transfer Partners has bought up lots of new properties and have acquired lots of other corporations. ETP bought out Sunoco in 2012. So Sunoco is a fully owned subsidiary of Kelsey Warren's Behemoth Corporation. Kelsey Warren's ETP also bought out Stripes. And Stripes is a chain of about 600 convenience stores in Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. And ETP also bought out Regency Energy Partners. They've been buying out corporations left and right since they started. And actually, they're happy when the market is bad, because when the market is bad, then that puts everybody else out of business, and then they're the only ones standing. And when they're the only ones standing, they get to demand what they want. They get to charge what prices they want. An LLC was created specifically for the Bakken pipeline in North Dakota. It's called the Dakota-Access-LLC. And the Dakota-Access-LLC is a subsidiary of the ETC. And in October 2014, Houston-based Phillips 66, another corporation, Phillips 66, became a joint venture partner, owning a 25% stake in the Bakken-Dakota-Access-LLC pipeline. So now they're getting partners from Phillips 66. Phillips 66 co-owns the Energy Transfer crude oil pipeline from Patoka to storage terminals in Nederland, Texas. It co-owns the storage terminals with the Philadelphia-based Sunoco Logistics Partners. Kelsey Warren's Energy Transfer Partners is a huge corporate conglomerate. Okay, Marathon Gas and Enbridge have also wanted to be, or they've invested in part of the Bakken-Dakota-Access pipeline deal. Just recently, however, Enbridge pulled the plug on the Sandpiper pipeline in Minnesota after Marathon and Energy Transfer Partners dropped out. So the Sandpiper pipeline in Minnesota is not going to go out. So that way they can focus all their energy on this Dakota Access pipeline. So it's all about this Dakota Access pipeline. Get that constructed, then they can make a shit ton of money. All their investors will be happy. Fuck the environment. Fuck these natives. Fuck the activists. Let's just do what we want and make these extraordinary, wealthy people even more extraordinarily wealthy. The banks that are financing the $3.8 billion pipeline project are the Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley. The Standing Rock Sioux Native Americans say that the Dakota Access Pipeline threatens sacred sites, such as their ancient burial grounds. And they also say that it could potentially pollute their water. While the black Bakken snake that's going to deliver all this dirty crude oil, the Dakota Access Pipeline doesn't go straight through the Standing Rock Reservation. It does go a half a mile above Cannonball Town, above the Standing Rock Reservation, going through the Missouri. So the pipeline, if it busted, would affect the Missouri River and the Owyhee Lake, which is where the Standing Rock Reservation gets their water from. The Missouri River goes down. And their drinking water and their plumbing and the irrigation, this all comes from the mother source, the mother river, the Missouri River. And the Missouri River are the tribe's only source for fresh drinking water. Water is a life force. Water is the first medicine. Water is H2O, made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. The most telling of the North Dakota regulators' story is that they didn't want the Bakken crude oil pipeline going through the Missouri River 10 miles north of Bismarck, North Dakota's capital, population 61,000, because of the inherent dangers associated with the possible pipeline burst. So since it was around Bismarck, that plan was scrapped. Instead, Kelsey Warren's corporation and North Dakota regulators decided, without the input of the Standing Rock Sioux, which is illegal in international law, to put the pipeline near Cannonball, half-mile north of the town of Cannonball, which is located at the confluence of Cannonball and Missouri rivers in the Standing Rock Reservation. The town is. A half a mile above it is not. The Bakken pipeline is planning on pumping 570,000 barrels of crude oil every day. Over 500,000 barrels of crude oil is going to be pumped through the Missouri River through this stellar. It's got to be the greatest damn pipeline ever, right? It's got to be resilient to earthquakes and rust and damage, and nothing can ever go wrong with it. In fact, you probably have to have it in one piece. You can't have it screw, right? If you're screwing, then there's going to be little air bubbles. I mean, it's got to be one shot, one straight piece that goes straight through it. And hopefully nobody wrecks into it, right? But the Sioux doesn't just use the water to drink, so it could affect their clean drinking water, which is important because that's life. They also use the water from the Missouri River to cook with and to bathe with, to quench their thirst. The Sioux are at the Missouri River, the mother source, every day. This is part of their culture. This is part of their way of life. And pipelines spill. They leak. So it's not really a matter of if, but when. And when it does, it will be a threat to the Sioux. While the pipeline doesn't literally go through the reservation, it comes very close, and the pipe burst would affect their only water source. So this isn't just a fight for Standing Rock, but for the United States. This is big oil. This is a fossil fuel industry. This is the exacerbation of climate change. And it's the Native Americans that have actually been stopping and saying, hey, let's see what we're doing here. Let's slow this down and actually, what are we doing here? We're destroying Mother Earth. Kelsey Warren, the CEO of the Energy Transfer Partner, says he just wants to continue to aggressively grow his company. And that's all he cares about. Profits, making money, getting money to his investors, getting money into his pocket. And so let's slow down here. Is this really the direction that we want America to go? Kelsey Warren is also disdainful of activists. He says, and it's a quote, he says, why should a handful of activists decide what's good for America? And that's the thing. Activists aren't making the decisions for America. We got the Keystone Pipeline stopped, but it was barely. And there was a lot of effort and a lot of energy that went into just stopping this thing that they wanted to construct right into the middle of America. Wouldn't create very many jobs, would have helped Canada's oil production companies out, but essentially it's to help the oil companies at the expense of the people. And the people that's actually making the decisions for the United States would be the 400 billionaires of America. The billionaire class, the billionaire club of America. And there's only 400 of them. And when you have people that hates, anybody on welfare, and welfare, don't you care about your grandmother's welfare, your neighbor's welfare, your kid's welfare? But people will hate their neighbors for taking subsidies when corporations take more subsidies than any of your neighbors take in taxes. But they're more likely to hate, 47% of the country says, what's that one guy that, Mitt Romney said 47% of the country are the takers. So you're going to have middle America who's going to hate 150 million people for their greed. How dare you regular average Americans being too damn greedy? It's your damn fault that this country is the way it is. And yet, they don't consider that it could be the greed of 400 billionaires. That's the people making the decisions. That's the people that's financing these politicians. The politicians, they work for them. They're the puppet masters. Donald Trump was the puppet master. Anytime he called Hillary Clinton, Hillary was on the phone saying, what do you need, Donald? The He's the corporation, she's the corporatist, he's the puppeteer, she's the puppet. And so the 400 billionaires of America, the Billionaire Club of America, of which Kelsey Warren is a part of, are actually the few individuals who dictate what's good for America. So I think it's a good question, Kelsey Warren. How come a few 400 billionaires get to decide what's best for over 300 million people? So if North Dakota's officials pulled the plug on the Bakken pipeline because they believed it would be dangerous to the safe drinking water for the residents of their capital city, Bismarck, why do they believe that it's acceptable for the Standing Rock Sioux? I'm John Masters. Mwah. Never could do that right. So I'm John Masters. Peace.